Good morning. Around and around we go. Back to war. Ceasefire, no ceasefire. Innocent civilians murdered in the streets during a ceasefire. Sounds like a real ceasefire. Well, now we're back to war. We hear the jets back in the air. You can start to hear the booms in the distance. What is this? Everybody's asking why. Why is God doing this? People ask me all the time, why is God doing this? And as if, I have a front seat or, some kind of secret connection. We all have the connection. The difference is that the heart has to be open. The heart has to be willing to hear. And the paradox is that our desire to hear the truth can be very painful, to the point that we don't want to hear the truth. And so Judaism presents the ultimate paradox that God allows things to happen that cause us pain, and we don't like it. And then the sages come along and tell us that there's no pain without sin, without discretion, indiscretion, I should say. And God is telling us what? Why we back and forth in this merry-go-round of warfare, peace, warfare, negotiations, peace, hostages, why? And I think, if I could be as honest as possible, that all war is to change a state of being, that there is a false peace. False peace is what produces war. So all the wars that we've ever seen in history have been to uproot false peace and realign nations and realign people to their leaders. In other words, to change leaders, to change aspects of a society's behavior. All of it is to shake up the old system, because the old system has not worked for a long time. And so the old system, we could give it names, call it Western, call it Eastern, call it communist, socialist, democratic. All the forms keep leading us back to war because we don't have true peace. But you could say, but there's so many good people and so few bad people. Why does this happen? This comes up all the time. And it's not that the numbers, God's playing with numbers in heaven between the good people and the bad people. Oh, there's more good people today. I'll do something nice. Oh, there's a lot of bad people last night. We're going to do something evil. I'm afraid the creator of the universe is a little more sophisticated and prescient and connected to us in a much broader sense. So how does it work? Well, the way it works is that when an old system hasn't worked because they don't have true peace, they don't have inner peace, they don't have national peace, they don't have international peace, there has to be a shakeup, and the shakeup is always war. But on a deeper level, we see over history, if you look at all the wars, the Jews always seem to be wrapped in there somewhere. And what's happening in all these wars is the Jews are being pushed around the planet, from nation to nation, from empire to empire, all the way back in time. So why are the Jews being pushed around the planet? Well, that has happened because the rabbis taught if the Jews merited to live the Torah completely in its fullness at home in Eretz Yisrael, they would never have to go out to exile amongst the nations. But since they did not merit to that great, awesome level, which is truly a difficult thing, they had to go out into the exile and teach and live Torah there. In other words, A father has many children, and one of them is rebellious, and one of them is difficult. And to the point where the father tells the son, I think you're going to have to leave the house and go find out what it's like out there in the bigger world. And so God sent the Jews out in the bigger world from nation to nation, empire to empire throughout the last 2,000 years. And now we've come home. And God said, come back now. You've learned enough. You've spread my teachings enough. You've tried to live the Torah. You've tried to share what you know. You've tried to be an example. Not just a teacher, but an example. Big difference, right? And now we've come home. But we still have war because we still don't have peace. When I say peace, I mean real consensus of we don't want to fight. We'd rather get along. We'd rather be fair and just with each other in our business, in our relationships, in our governmental policies. We need to stop being warmongers, but more importantly, we have to stop financing the warmongers. And that's where we understand that there's a lot of good people, many more good people in the world than bad people. But the good people are people that want to stay home, they want to go to work, they want to have a good, simple life. Who are all the little good people going to stand up to these warmongers with the billion-dollar budgets? That's where we turn to God, because only He can swing the balance. And so you ask, why does God let these wars happen? Like the war that started up this morning very nicely. You hear the jets roaring and you think it's a glorious thing. It's not glorious. There's no glory in killing people. There's no glory in in being a killer. The only glory is the victory of truth and justice. And that's why we have to go back to war, because the people across the valley here, they can't seem to keep off those rocket launchers. They can't stop. They can't stop themselves from killing innocent civilians in the streets. And they're proud about it, and they advertise it. And the nations are telling the Jews what to do, not to fight. Well, that's another heshbon. That's another accounting that will have to take place, probably in the near future. Because the nations that tell the Jews what to do and interfere with God's business will have to make a reckoning on that. However, for our understanding as simple, good people that want goodness, but we don't really want to stand up to evil, because that's hard work. That's not pleasant. And yet we have to stand up to evil now. The time has come. And yes, we have new tools. We have new weapons. And the weapons are the internet. The weapons are the truth and the communication and sharing the truth and knocking down the falsehood wherever we see it. And eventually there's going to be a time where people just stop sending their children off to war. I have sons in the army. I have relatives in the army. And, it's not a nice thing to send your kid off to war. Why are we doing that? You get to have a white beard, and then you sit in your office and send the young people off to fight and keep checking your bank account as the dollars go in, because the weapons keep getting sold. When is that going to stop? That's the day of true human celebration, when we refuse as a collective people to enter that process. And we choose peace, and that's Shabbat. And Shabbat is coming a few hours away, and we are looking for a very interesting Shabbat, because usually when we come back from the ceasefire, right, and enter war again, it changes the context, and usually you got to be looking over your shoulder a little bit more than we'd like to, especially on Shabbat. But with Shabbat, we have the promise of peace. We have the promise of international, eternal peace. And however and whenever it happens and how long it takes, well, that's going to depend on a lot of factors. It's a very big matrix up in heaven. But we have Shabbat coming, and I bless all of you with that inner peace, that Shabbat, to rest, to turn to faith. So Shabbat Shalom to all of you. God bless you. See you next week.